Thank you. Ebony's just revealed while I'm here, it's pure nepotism. I actually told her I was interested in concrete the first time that I came to one of these, probably about a year ago. I just love the idea, and afterwards I came up to Ebony and I said, "Can I do one of these?" She said, "Yeah, what do you want to talk about?" I said, "Concrete." She laughed. I was like, "I am not joking." So I woke up this morning, I was actually feeling a bit under the weather, but I looked up at the sky and I said, "Not today, Satan. The people need to know about concrete. They yearn for it." So let's get into it. Does everyone remember Thunderbirds? There we go, very good. For those of you who don't, it was a British show from the 60s. It asked us to suspend our disbelief and imagine that the wealthiest person in the world might use their riches for the good of humanity. I used to wake up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning to watch it when I was a little kid. It was filmed with puppets, but I didn't really understand that at the time. One morning while watching, I asked my mum, "How do they make their toys do that?" "Well, they're not toys," she said. "They're puppets. See, there are people above them controlling them with strings." Next week, got up at 6 a.m. again to watch Thunderbirds, only this time, couldn't seem to enjoy it as much. I just kept looking for the strings. And once you see the strings, you can't really unsee them. Concrete to me, it's a bit like the strings. By weight, we produce roughly 1 ton of it per person per year. Every single person in the world. Put another way, if you would take all the concrete we pour in a year globally, you'd have enough to make all of Melbourne all over again. And not just once. 10 times over. We've been doing that for a while. Here's what it looks like. The green line, biomass, that's everything that's alive. All the plants, trees, animals, bees, rabid dogs, insects, humans. The other colours, the anthropogenic mass, that's everything that humans produce. And that big purple wedge down the bottom, that's concrete. There's a crossover point in 2020. That's when the things that we've made begun to outweigh everything that's alive. So the world is no longer primarily natural, it's built. And by far, what we've built with the most is concrete. And yet, when's the last time you actually looked at it? I mean, really looked at it and thought, there it is, the most used human-made material on the planet. Probably never, yes, if you're normal. But just as I could never unsee the strings, I'm hoping by the end of tonight, you won't be able to unsee concrete either. You're welcome. I want to show you what I mean with the picture. This might not make much sense to you right now, but we're going to come back to it later, and I think you'll see it differently when we do. For now, though, let's start with the basics. Concrete is just 4 things. Cement. Now, cement is not concrete. Cement's an ingredient in concrete, and a very important one. It glues everything together. Then you're going to have some aggregate. It's usually crushed gravel or rock. That takes up most of the space. Sand, that's your fine aggregate. It takes up all the space that the rocks don't. And then you've got water, which kickstarts the chemical reaction that makes concrete hard. Because wet concrete doesn't dry, it cures. So for any pedants in the audience, you can use that one. Now, you've probably never made concrete. Some of you have, I'm sure, but most haven't. You probably made chocolate chip cookies, though, so you can think of it this way. The flour is the cement, the chocolate chips are the aggregate, the sugar is the sand, and the egg is the water. So it's basically just cookie dough for the CFMEU. Now, despite what this graph I showed you suggests, we've actually been using concrete for a very, very long time. The basic idea of mixing ingredients together that harden, well, that's pretty much always been around. We call that mortar. It's the stuff you see in between the bricks. And you can and could make it from pretty much anything you had available. Mud, gypsum, lime. You'll find these sorts of mortars at archaeological sites all over the world. It's kind of like concrete's simpler cousin. You use it to stick pieces together or to make a flat surface, but you don't use it to build. The Romans changed that. I don't know, every man in here just got a little bit excited. That's right, it's your daily dose, fellas. Open up. Don't talk to your girlfriend about this on the way home. She is not interested. See, what the Romans had available to make their concrete, their mortar, was pozzolana, volcanic ash from the Bay of Naples. It was available in, shall we say, generous quantities there. And they noticed something when they used pozzolana to make their mortar. It set much harder than any other mortar had before. And that changed the possibilities of what they could do with it. To begin with, rather than just putting it between the bricks, they'd build 2 parallel walls of bricks and fill up the space between with the mortar and all the bricks they broke along the way. At that point, they basically had concrete. They used it in the aqueducts which carried water to their city, and they noticed it held up really well underwater. So they started building harbours where nature hadn't put any. And hey, if you can build these massive structures in the sea, why not on land? Why not indeed? Might recognise this one. As well as using concrete at various points throughout the construction, the Colosseum sits atop massive concrete foundations, while elsewhere in Rome, the Pantheon is roofed by a magnificent concrete dome. Up top, down low, underwater, this stuff could do it all. And they weren't using it for economical reasons either. They even made Emperor Nero's house out of it, which, if you know anything about Emperor Nero, is kind of funny because concrete doesn't burn. When Rome fell, concrete stopped being used like that. Not because we forgot exactly, but because the use of concrete like this was the expression of a very specific society. The empire, the ambition, the supply chains, the access to the volcanic ash. All of their buildings were displays of power and wealth within a societal structure which made it possible. Without those conditions, building with concrete just didn't really make sense. So in the former Roman Empire, as well as everywhere else in the world, builders built with the materials they had available to them. Local stone, local clay, local timber, local straw. For well over 1,000 years, buildings looked like the places they were from, because they were. Does anyone know who these two are, or what they have in common? And my questions are way harder than Clancy's, sorry. If you said they both look a bit like Joseph's, you'd be correct, but that's not what I'm talking about. No, these two men who almost nobody can name are arguably more responsible for the physical shape of the modern world than almost anyone you could name. Joseph I, or Joseph Aspton, as his friends called him, was an English bricklayer from Leeds, and in 1824 he filed a patent. His process was to take limestone and clay, mix it, burn it in a kiln, and grind it into a powder. That really hot section's where I left my mixtape. He called that powder Portland cement, and this was a game changer because the Romans had access to the pozzolana to make their mortar. That's great if you live near a volcano. It's less useful if you live in Leeds. But now, you could build a similarly strong cement pretty much anywhere you could build a kiln, and that was everywhere. Joseph I, he didn't think he was bringing concrete back though. No, he thought he was just making a better stucco. This stuff, just a decorative mortar. There's still one invention needed to really set concrete free again. That's where we get to Joseph II, or Joseph Monnier. He was a French gardener, and in 1867 he was just trying to build a pot that didn't crack. He had the idea of embedding an iron mesh into the concrete as he poured it into a mould. It worked, and unlike Joseph I, Joseph II knew what he had. He didn't call it this yet, but he'd invented reinforced concrete. This was important because concrete is very strong under compression. If any of you have done high school physics classes, you'll remember this one. It's very weak though, under tension. If you try to stretch it or bend it, it will crack. Steel's the opposite. Put them together, you get a material that can do both. Joseph quit his day job and he started working out methodically everything that reinforced concrete could do. And when he found something that did work, he'd file a patent and he'd sell it to people in other countries. including Australia, where in the 1890s, a young engineer by the name of John Monash bought one of those patents here in Victoria. He's the one the stuff is named after. Didn't think that was the best joke I had, but fantastic. He had to learn the details in French, had to teach the workers how to use it, and he had to convince the clients that the bridges wouldn't fall down. Fortunately for him and his clients, they didn't. And I know that because some of you have probably walked across one. This is the Morell Bridge, which stretches from the edge of the Botanical Gardens into Gosh's Paddock in Richmond. There's our boy. 1899, still there. So concrete's starting to spread again. Because we can make it anywhere, and because the conditions which had once been assembled in ancient Rome, centralised power, coordinated labour, the infrastructure to move materials at scale, we'd assembled them again. We're testing the limits of what it can do. Globally, we're finding new and more uses for it. Still hasn't really taken off though. For that, one condition was missing: urgency. World War II provides that. It industrialises building. It presents a number of unique engineering and design challenges, and the engineers and builders of the time solved almost all of them the exact same way. You need runways on remote Pacific islands. Pour concrete. Defensive bunkers in Europe. Make them out of concrete. Temporary harbours off the coast of Normandy that can be assembled in days. Also concrete. They even made ships out of them, if you can believe that. Concrete will float. If you can imagine it, they tried it. It was like in the 70s where they started using jelly to cook and just went absolutely crazy. Nothing was safe from being put into jelly. Abominations on every dinner table. What's for dinner? Don't worry about it. I don't want it. But I digress. My point is, World War II creates a generation of engineers and builders who've learned how to move, mix and pour concrete at scales never seen before. And then the war ends. Much of the world is in pieces, and even where it's not, Australia for example, all the soldiers are about to come home, and they're all very horny to start a family. So we're about to have a lot more people. When those engineers and builders come home as well and are faced with these new challenges, they don't sit around debating materials. They already know the answer. And it's the answer we've had ever since. You need to rebuild a city? Concrete. You want to house thousands, millions of people? Concrete. Office space? Concrete. Millions of kilometres of footpaths, sewage systems, some roads, a hospital. Concrete, concrete, concrete. That's Footscray Psychiatric Hospital, by the way. If you weren't insane going in there, you definitely were coming out. If the Joker was real, that's where they'd put him. That's just an obvious example, though. We figured out pretty quickly people didn't love the look of raw dogging concrete. So we started covering it up. Glass, steel, tiles, cladding, you name it. And sometimes we do manage to make it look beautiful. But even so, underneath almost all of it, the structure is still concrete. And the logic is still concrete. Build fast, build cheap, build predictable. That logic has consequences. If I were to teleport you in front of any one of these places, I'm guessing there's a pretty good chance you'd know where you are, roughly. I'll give you a few seconds, have a think about it. How'd you go? Any surprises? I'm guessing you at least got the continent. And sure, there are architectural styles that give it away a little bit too. But those emerged because people were solving local problems with local materials. Today though, what are the local materials? What are the problems? So let's talk through another thought experiment. You go to a new city, what's the first place you see? It's the airport. And even when it looks good, some of them do, they look good in a way you recognise. The materials, the light, the scale, concrete holding it up, steel and glass covering it up. Someone worked very hard to make these feel distinctive, and yet they still look like airports. They all look like airports. Nobody plans that. It's just what happens when every airport in the world is solving the same problems with the same materials within the same incentive structure. And then what do you do next? You get on a train or into a taxi and you go looking for the part of the city that doesn't look like this. Sorry, I missed that one. This stuff, not Starbucks. The old town, the market, the places that feel they could only exist there. Now, this isn't concrete's fault. Concrete is neutral. People still visit the Pantheon. We all love the Sydney Opera House. No, concrete's an enabler. The values which pour it are ours. It gave us the power to build anything, anywhere, freed from the constraints of place and material and tradition. And what we chose to do with that freedom, mostly, was build the same thing everywhere, as cheaply as possible. And when you apply those kinds of values globally for decades, you end up with a particular kind of world. A world full of places that function perfectly, but feel like nowhere in particular. Dubai is the most extreme version of this logic taken to its conclusion, because you might think, well, Jeremy, you said concrete needs sand, and Dubai is surrounded by sand. So it kind of makes sense they build with concrete in Dubai. Here's the interesting thing, though. No way they use their sand. You see, Anakin was wrong. Sand isn't always coarse and rough. I don't know about Tatooine, but on Earth, desert sand is smooth. Uselessly smooth. You can technically make concrete from it, but no one does it for real. Modern concrete, as we understand it, needs sand that's rough. The grains need to interlock with each other, and you get that kind of sand from riverbeds and coastlines, beaches. So Dubai, this place, has to import sand just to look pretty much the same as everywhere else, just taller buildings. And this is where it stops being abstract, because we're not moving a bit of sand around. We extract billions of tons of it from rivers and coastlines every year. And in some places, that kind of demand has consequences which sound almost fictional. Organised crime networks, sand mafias. I don't know if we have any sand mafia members in the audience tonight, but if we do, I'm getting whacked on the way home for sure. Illegal dredging in the middle of the night. Beaches stolen overnight. And it's not funny, but that headline is. I can imagine if you're on holiday and you wake up and the beach is gone. Oh, yep. Forgetting my gifts. In some places, they extract so much sand from rivers that the banks actually collapse. Which takes us back to this picture. This is sand mining. This is what it looks like. This is what happens when they take too much. And this is where it ends up. In the city to build more cubes. And that's where I want to leave the environmental stuff. And not with guilt, because I hope what's clear is that no one really chose this. We're just reacting to incentives. Instead, I just want to leave you with the observation that the world is constantly being remade and taken apart and remade, and most of the time we never even really notice. So I want you to do something. On your way home tonight, I want you to actually look at the concrete as you walk past. Not as background noise, as a material. Look at the texture of it. See if you can notice the aggregate. Think of the riverbed that gave it sand. The limestone and clay burned in a kiln somewhere because of a bricklayer from Leeds 200 years ago. It's the cookie dough, a volcanic coastline, a French gardener who just wanted a pot that didn't crack. It's not inherently ugly or beautiful or even good or bad. It's just the thing we make more of than anything else. it's all around you, and it always has been. The difference, hopefully, is that now you're actually seeing it. Now you can see the strings.
I think we're definitely going to have some curious people driving home tonight looking at the streets and the buildings. All right, do we have any concrete questions for Jeremy? Oh, we'll go here first.
One, what's the life cycle of concrete look like when we move to the end of its lifespan?
What's the lifespan of concrete?
Modern concrete, look, it varies because sometimes they overbuild and use more concrete, but generally speaking, we don't plan to build for millennia like the Romans did. So concrete can last with some maintenance, but generally, look, after 100 years, it does start to degrade a bit. The thing is, though, modern concrete as we know it, I mean, we're only kind of just hitting that 100-year period, so couldn't actually answer that for sure, exactly how long it's going to last. But there's no reason with good maintenance why it can't continue to harden over time, actually. It achieves a certain percentage of strength very quickly, which is why we use a lot of it. But it continues to harden for quite a while afterwards, decades. So I don't think anything that we've poured is going to last as long as the Pantheon, for example. But I don't think it's too much of an issue.
An enthusiastic question down here.
Just related to that, is there an environmental impact of long-term concrete? Do we not want it to last that long?
Is there an environmental impact of long-term concrete? Do we want it to break down?
No, I don't think we do. Ideally, we want our concrete to last because the environmental impact of concrete, aside from sand, is from the cement production. So cement production actually accounts for 8% of carbon dioxide emissions globally. If cement were a country, it would only be behind the USA and China in terms of emissions. So ideally, we want to make less concrete, less cement, sorry. And so we want the concrete that we do pour to last, if it can. And interestingly, cement will reabsorb some of the carbon dioxide when it's set in concrete. And so if we do break up concrete afterwards, you expose more surface area to the cement and it actually continues to absorb a little bit more carbon dioxide. So in a way, breaking it up does benefit the environment as well. But ideally, I think we want the concrete we pour to last. The thing is, we don't build things to last. You know, we get bored of things and then we're like, that's old now, let's knock that down and build something else.
Classic. All right, a question here.
Thanks.
A compliment and a question.
Thank you. I'll remember the compliment anyway. Is concrete recycling a thing? Excellent question. To an extent. So we can take concrete, break it down, and we can reuse the rubble as the aggregate. That works. You can never get back the cement though. So we always have to make new cement. So the kind of concrete alternatives, just to preempt a possible question, it's really about replacing the cement. And we can use different things from industrial byproducts like fly ash from coal combustion, slag from metal smelting. And that would kind of make it a bit more of a closed process because we're producing those things anyway. But there's a very limited extent to which we can recycle concrete made with Portland cement.
Do we have a question up the back there? Yep.
Jeremy, I'm thinking about it and wondering why has the Pantheon lasted so long? What's it about Roman concrete?
Oh, what makes Roman concrete unique? Maybe better?
Excellent question, Julian, my colleague who I didn't pay to ask that question. The Pantheon dome has lasted so long because the Roman builders could not model forces applied to the buildings that they built. So they learned how much concrete to use really through trial and error. And when you're a builder in Rome, you don't really want the error part. You just want the trial. So they overbuilt pretty much everything. So if you were to look at how much concrete the Pantheon uses versus how much we would need if we were to do that today, they used way more. That's why it's lasted. And one other reason, which I didn't get to in the talk because I didn't have time. Pozzolana is pretty much magic. If you mix pozzolana, the cement that the Romans used, with seawater, it creates this whole new mineral which hardens over time. So that's why the things that the Romans made in the sea with concrete are still there. Like if you did that with modern concrete, it'd be gone very quickly. Roman concrete, yeah, it's kind of chemical magic.
Some special. All right. We'll go here and then maybe one more question and we'll give Jeremy a break.
What's the, I don't know if you want to answer this, but what is the impact of moving so much mass from one place to another place and centralising it in cities? What's the global impact of that?
Yeah, so what's the global impact of, I don't know, taking tons of something and putting tons of something somewhere else? Lucky the Earth's round.
It's interesting to think about. Yeah, look, I don't think it's going to throw off our gravity anytime soon. But it's a great question because, yeah, we're taking sand from rivers, we're quarrying rocks, just generally, not just for concrete. We really are. We dig up the earth in the outlying areas and we bring it to the city. I mean, urban population is increasing all the time. Urban density is increasing all the time. If you continue that indefinitely, you will see effects. Of course you will. We can't just continue to take apart the natural environment, use it to make the built environment, and expect things will remain the same. So I can't really answer your question, but I think if you just play that out in the long run, then inevitably you will see changes. There are, as I showed you, rivers that have already collapsed, beaches that are just gone. At some point, there is a real chance we will run out of the sand we can use to make concrete. So look, there will be consequences. Are there any forces at play which are going to arrest that anytime soon? Unfortunately, I don't think so.
All right, one more question. I feel like there's someone up the back with a hand.
I just wanted to know, where are we at with crack mitigation?
I think it was a question about crack.
Was that crack propagation mitigation?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not an engineer. I don't know.
We love a quickie. All right.
I'm going to look that up when I get home.
Put your hands together for Jeremy.